Welcome to Football's Golden Oldies from the Toll House Inn, Lancaster, for part 2 of the Brian Clough story. How Brian signed a great centre-half. Brian first signed a 19-year-old reserve forward from Sunderland, spending £21,000 on John O'Hare. Not a great scorer, not tall, not quick, but he had the moral courage that Harry Storer demanded. The first game produced a 3-2 win over Charlton, Hector and O'Hare adding to an own goal. But Taylor missed the game to watch a 19-year-old centre-half play for Tranmere at Torquay and said the kid never lost his composure, had a cultured left foot and was ruthless. The following Friday they went to Tranmere, ostensibly to watch the game against Reading, but in reality to sign Roy McFarlane. In the lounge after the game, when Dave Russell, the Tranmere manager, went to the Gents, Clough followed him and negotiations were well underway when they returned. Clough initially offered £12,000. Russell laughed at the derisory offer, so Brian said he would have to get permission from his chairman to go over £20,000. And it was midnight when Brian picked up the phone, dialed his own number and had a pretend argument with Sam Longson, winning his approval to go to £24,000, which Dave Russell accepted and gave Clough permission to speak to the player. They couldn't wait until the following day, so Russell went with them. They drove the wrong way to put off would-be pursuers, turned and went through the Mersey Tunnel to the terraced house McFarlane shared with his parents. It was after midnight when Roy's father had to wake him up. Roy wasn't keen to go to a second division club, but his dad, who was a Clough fan in his playing days, said, "Brian must think a great deal of you, and they have made such an effort." McFarlane signed, but woke up the next day thinking he had made a huge mistake. Still spending Sam Longson's money, Roy McFarlane made his debut in a 3-1 win at Rotherham, and then Derby beat Aston Villa 3-1 in a game that was overshadowed by the death of Harry Storer, aged 69, leading Brian Clough to show another side of his remarkable character by visiting Storer's widow, Kathy, where he ensured that whenever she wanted to watch games at the baseball ground, she'd be picked up, given a meal, looked after and driven home after the game. Brian never let Harry Storer down. The deal to bring Alan Hinton to Derby was done at midnight with Nottingham Forest chairman Tony Wood, when Clough paid £29,000 for the 24-year-old, who had a reputation for shirking physical challenges and earned the nickname Gladys. The Derby director asked, "What colour is Hinton's handbag?" But he was another part of the puzzle that Clough and Taylor were solving, and will be Derby's top scorer in 4 years as they became champions, with Clough insisting that Hinton had that most vital ingredient, moral courage, thanks to Harry Storer. Clough's best ever signing for £5,000. Taylor felt the need of experience in the team, so he told Clough to go and try to sign Dave Mackay, who was leaving Spurs to go back to Hearts as player manager. Before going to London, Clough rang Mackay at his tie shop and said, "You can be part of a great side I'm building at Derby." Mackay expressed cautious interest, but when he looked where Derby had finished in the league in 67 and 68 and saw them in 18th place, he thought, "Clough is absolutely bonkers." Brian walked into White Hart Lane and bumped straight into Bill Nicholson, who told him Mackay was going to Hearts and wouldn't be interested in joining Derby, a lowly second division club. Clough waited and eventually met Mackay, and as they chatted, Mackay said he couldn't come to Derby for £10,000. So Brian said, "What will you come for?" Mackay replied, 15,000. Clough said, "I can possibly go to 14,000, paid as a signing on fee over 3 years." Mackay accepted immediately. Clough said, "Dave brought a swagger to the team, to the whole club, and playing as a sweeper behind McFarlane was perfect for him. I allowed him to miss training sessions, put first practice of the week to Tuesday to allow Dave to get there from his London home, and I always asked his opinion at half-time." In the early days at least, Clough's handling of players extended beyond intimidation. Mackay said, "Clough introduced me to a world of four-letter insults, slamming doors, and even an underlying hint of physical violence." Taylor's idea, Clough's persuasion, and the story. "I never did a better piece of business in my entire career, although the man himself had serious doubts the minute he arrived at the baseball ground. It had been Peter's idea originally, Taylor at his best, assessing what a team needed. Nobody ever did it better." Taylor greeted Mackay with, "Dave, I think you'd better listen to what the gaffer's got to say. He's got a new job for you. We're going to play you as a sweeper." Mackay said, "I've covered every blade of grass on every pitch I've ever played on. That's my game, that's my style. I can't play as a sweeper." Clough said, "When you see Roy McFarlane," he was 18 years old, fullbacks John Robson, 18, and Ronnie Webster, 25, voted the best right back in Derby's history in 2009, you will see that you'll be surrounded by young talent who will do the running and the donkey work, and you can direct the whole team from back there like the conductor of an orchestra. The skill of good management lies in assessment, judgment and motivation. It lies in knowing what the team needs, get players capable of providing it, and make bloody sure that every single one of them in the dressing room gives absolutely everything, match in, match out, in the interests of the team. It never ceases to amaze me that so many people have so much difficulty in assembling a good football team. How can they make such a simple job so complex?" Mackay was won over by Clough, who went on to say, "Dave Mackay, playing in the Derby defence, was as near to perfection as makes no difference." Clough and Taylor bolster the midfield. Shortcomings in midfield led Clough to go out and get Willie Carwin, a belligerent, aggressive little scouser from Sheffield United, for 63,000. But Carwin wasn't convinced, so Clough met his wife, Marie, and talked curtains, carpets, furniture and kids rather than football, and she then told her husband to get her out of Sheffield for the lovely surroundings of Derby. Clough then added the final key ingredient, agreeing a 7,000 fee with Hartlepool's for 18-year-old John McGovern, with Clough telling everyone he'd play for Scotland before he was 21. I'm reminded here of a quote from Alan Ball, who said, "I never get a kick against this bloke, John McGovern." Mackay was surprised. That afternoon, a boy with fair hair and a neat side parting arrived at the ground on a push bike, and as he came towards us, I thought he was a rather bold autograph hunter. The director asked, "Why have we signed a sparrow-footed, innocuous frail weakling, another amateur?" McGovern's odd running style was down to a muscle that was missing from his shoulder, which wasn't diagnosed until he was 28, by which time John felt there was little point in corrective surgery. Second Division champions, then top dogs. With these signings, Clough and Taylor led Derby County to become champions of Division 2. establishing the club record of 22 matches without defeat, on the way going from 18th in the league to the pinnacle in Dave Mackay's first season. Derby's first season back in Division 1 saw them finish 4th, their best league finish for over 20 years, but due to financial irregularities, the club was banned from Europe the following season and fined £10,000. In 70-71, Derby finished 9th, and Clough bolstered his squad by signing Colin Todd for a British record of 175,000. In 71-72, after tussling with Liverpool, Leeds and Man City for the title, Derby finally topped the league table by a single point after playing their final match, a 1-0 win over Liverpool, who had a chance along with Leeds if they won their final matches. Leeds lost to Wolves and Liverpool drew with Arsenal, meaning Derby were league champions for the first time in their 88-year history, and an incredible success story for Clough and Taylor. Taylor had taken the players on holiday to Mallorca, and Clough was on a holiday in the Isles of Scilly with his family and elderly parents when he received the news. Feud with the board of directors. Does Brian think he's fireproof? In August 72, Clough refused to go on a pre-season tour of the Netherlands and Germany unless he could take his family, but Longson told him it was work, not a holiday, so Clough sent Taylor and stayed at home. But then on August 24th, Brian signed David Nish from Leicester for a record fee of $225,000 without consulting the board. Alarm bells should have been ringing. In September, he criticised the fans for only cheering when the team were leading, calling them a disgraceful lot, and then verbally attacked the directors for their policies. But next day, Longson apologised to the fans and disassociated himself from Clough's remarks. Derby failed to retain their title, finishing 7th, and lost to Juventus in April 73 in the semi-finals of the European Cup, 3-1 in Agrabah, before emerging from the dressing room to say to the Italian reporters, "I will not talk to any cheating bastards," before questioning the Italian nation's courage in the Second World War. I bet that went down well. He also made frequent comments about the FA, club directors and figures in the game like Matt Busby, Alan Hardacre, Alf Ramsey, plus players like Bremner, Hunter and Lorimer at Leeds. In August 73, in an article in the Sunday Express, he said, "I would put Leeds in Division 2. It does seem that Brian almost had a death wish when you look at what he said in 1972. He admired Alf Ramsey so much, even calling his wife Barbara Alf when she talked about football. Brian's death wish continues. Brian savaged Leeds bad boys and said that Revy should be fined for encouraging bad behaviour and dirty play, insisting that they should be relegated automatically. Brian Clough and Taylor resigned on October 15th, 1973, and you can see in the photograph, which was accepted by Longson, but there was widespread uproar from the fans who demanded they should both be reinstated. Brian appeared on Parkinson and attacked football directors for their lack of football knowledge, and in the same week called Poland goalkeeper Jan Tomaszewski a circus clown in gloves. Brian was charged with bringing the game into disrepute, but was cleared on November 14th. The 6 years at Derby had brought Clough to the attention of the wider football world, and according to James Lawton, Derby County was the wild making of Brian Clough, who went there a young and urgent manager who had done impressive work at Hartlepool's, but he left Derby surrounded by fascination and great celebrity, abrasive, infuriating, but plugged immovably into a vein of the nation. Next came Brighton and Hove and Leeds United, Such was the loyalty to Clough that, along with himself and Taylor, scouts and backroom staff completed the walkout, following the pair for their brief spell on the south coast, where he proved less successful, winning only 12 of his 32 games in charge of the Division 3 side, Albion finishing 19th place in the league. Clough left Brighton without Taylor less than a year after his appointment, and in July '74 he became manager of Leeds United, following Don Revie's departure to become England manager. First training session, and Brian told the players, "You can all throw your medals in the bin because they were not won fairly." Sacked, but made financially secure for life. Brian lasted in the job only 44 days before he was sacked on September 12, 1974, winning only one game out of 6, but his payoff cost Leeds £120,000, including his Mercedes, having been guided by a financial expert introduced to him by Peter Taylor. That night he appeared on Yorkshire television, debating his short reign at Ellen Road, as well as management practice with Don Revie, who he disliked intensely, and this meeting was described by a journalist thus: "It was like watching a bickering couple about to get a divorce." 16 weeks later, Clough replaced Alan Brown as manager of Nottingham Forest on January 6, 1975, bringing Jimmy Gordon with him as trainer. But would this be another short reign to go along with Brighton and Leeds United, or could Clough reach the heights again? Financial security thanks to Leeds United. So we see Brian walking up the country lane with a shotgun over his right shoulder and the house he bought. When Brian received £120,000 in compensation from Leeds United, he would buy a house north of Derby up the Kedleston Road at Quandon, and he loved the country life, as can be seen with his shotgun. Nottingham Forest Football Club were a different football club. They used to call Nottingham Forest a gentleman's club because it clung to Corinthian ideals, which did not put too high a premium on success, with a democratically elected committee rather than a board of directors, which tended to believe that winning at all costs was a heathen philosophy. At one time, they would not permit advertising on the ground, believing that it tarnished the game. Quaint, but unrealistic, and in many senses, it was the last place on earth you might think of looking for Brian Clough and Brian Appleby, the chairman, who gave the unemployed Clough the job, was warned by his predecessor, Jim Wilmer, "We don't want success at any price, you'll live to regret it." Clough and Appleby squared up to the difficult challenge ahead. The barrister and the backstreet kid were poles apart in intellect and ideology, so Appleby appointed Stuart Dryden, a magistrate, to be his vice chairman, telling him, "I'll support whatever you do, but I don't want to know what goes on." Brian Appleby did not want to be associated with the sordid wheelings and dealings of the game. Dryden remembers, he saw Clough and Taylor as riff-raff, the best at their job, but riff-raff nonetheless. He and Brian hated each other with a passion. Could Laurel persuade Hardy? John McGovern noticed that something was missing. Clough, after the Derby and Leeds setback, had lost that fantastic energy, but most of all, he missed Peter Taylor. John O'Hare said, "I took a 50% drop in pay and sold my house to make ends meet, but I needn't have worried. Clough was a different bloke at Forest. The arrogance and confidence had gone." First of all, Clough got Jimmy Gordon, who was working as a storeman at Rolls-Royce, to join him again, and then he told Dryden he was going to Mallorca to sign up his old mate, Peter Taylor. They met in a cafe and Clough talked his mate into joining him. Having read the situation perfectly, as Peter said, we both knew we were banging our heads against a brick wall on our own, but together we could do any job in the world. There was no point delaying any longer. 3 days later, Clough called Dryden from Mallorca. I've done what I came for, but we must let things die down for a while. Discretion was needed because Taylor had broken faith with Mike Bamber, the Brighton chairman, who was so upset he had to take time off to recover from the shock. Building Nottingham Forest in 1975. Nottingham Forest were 13th in the second division in 74-75 when Clough joined and finished the season in 16th. But he signed John McGovern and John O'Hare from Leeds, and then he brought John Robertson and Martin O'Neill back into the fold, as they had both asked for transfers under Alan Brown, with Viv Anderson becoming a regular under Brian, and then he signed Frank Clark on a free transfer in July 75 to go into the season full of optimism, an absolute bargain. I was lucky enough to meet Frank Clark when I was on holiday in Derbyshire, and he said it was just fantastic signing for Clough, and he said I'd been released from Newcastle and it was wonderful for me. In the 75-76 season, Forest finished 8th in the league and Brian made John McGovern club captain. July 16, 1976, Peter Taylor rejoined Clough as assistant manager and talent spotter, and he said to Clough, "That was a great feat to finish 8th because some of the players are only 3rd division standard." Taylor then berated John Robertson for allowing himself to become overweight and disillusioned, and put him on a diet and a training regime that would help him become a European Cup winner and turn Tony Woodcock from a reserve midfielder into a 42-cap England striker. In September 76, they bought Peter With for 43,000, selling him to Newcastle United for 250,000 2 years later. The partnership was back in business. First trophy in 76-77. Taylor scouted Gary Birtles at non-league Lonnie United, signing him for £2,000, and he would eventually replace Peter With as well as play for England. On Taylor's advice, Brian signed Larry Lloyd for £60,000 in October 76, and they won the first trophy of their reign when they beat Orient 5-1 on aggregate in the Anglo-Scottish Cup final, played in December 76, Forest's first trophy since 1959. Clough valued winning an often derided trophy, saying, "Those who said it was a nothing trophy were absolutely crackers. We'd won something and it made all the difference." Final game of the season, May 7th, and Forest beat Millwall 1-0 at the City Ground to finish in the 3rd promotion spot in the league. And on May 14th, when Wolves beat Bolton 1-0 at Burnham Park, the news reached the Forest team in mid-air en route to an end-of-season break in Mallorca. Would Clough have enjoyed the top job? I doubt it very much. Brian Clough can be seen at Lancaster Gate in 1977 before being interviewed by Sir Harold Thompson, who was far right, who was a disgrace, whatever way you looked at him, and he was paranoid about Brian Clough. Thompson appointed Ron Greenwood, the safe choice, who was at home wearing an FA blazer and a tie. Brian said, "I'm sure the selectors thought I would want to run the show, and that is exactly what I would have demanded, so for once they were correct." Brian would have applied again for the England job in '82, but was passed over in favour of Bobby Robson, and in 1988 he was offered the Welsh manager's job, but Nottingham Forest directors refused to let him split his loyalties. Was it Maigret or Clough's? who followed a tough-looking centre forward. Peter Taylor donned a cap, dark glasses and a scarf to scout the latest player on the radar. But who was he? This player had a reputation as a wild man, a heavy drinker and a gambler, so the directors were worried about the Scotsman with a fiery reputation. Taylor went to the Perry Bar dog trap to spy on his alleged gambling problem, then into the bar to check out how many pints he was drinking. But Kenny Burns passed the test with flying colours. Under Taylor's wing, Burns became a different character, and Peter said he was a lamb underneath. People had completely the wrong impression of him. His wife had him under her thumb. Kenny Burns was a centre forward with Birmingham City, but Clough and Taylor signed him for $150,000 to play at centre half. Can anyone remember a manager doing that in the 45 years since? In 77-78, Burns was Footballer of the Year, as well as Forest Player of the Year, and in 1981, Leeds United paid $400,000 to take him to Ellen Road. What good business that was. Forest began the season with a 3-1 win over Everton, then 3 more wins without conceding a goal before September arrived, and they lost 3-0 at Arsenal, but conceded 2 in a 3-2 win over Wolves. So alarm bells were ringing as they signed Peter Shilton for $325,000, sold goalkeeper John Middleton to Derby, with Archie Gemmill coming to Forest for $25,000 in part exchange. Championship and Cup winners. Forest lost 3 of their first 16 league games, the last of which was at Leeds on November 19, 1977, and would not lose another league game. Was it Maigret or Clough who followed a tough-looking centre forward? Peter Taylor donned a cap, dark glasses and a scarf to scout the latest player on the radar. But who was he? This player had a reputation as a wild man, a heavy drinker and a gambler, so the directors were worried about the Scotsman with the fiery reputation. Taylor went to the Perry Bar dog trap to spy on his alleged gambling problem, then into the bar to check how many pints he was drinking, but Kenny Burns passed the test with flying colours. Under Taylor's wing, Burns became a different character, and Peter said he was a lamb underneath. People had a completely the wrong impression of him. His wife had him under her thumb. Kenny Burns was a centre forward with Birmingham City, but Clough and Taylor signed him for $150,000 to play at centre half. Can anyone remember a manager doing that in the 45 years since? In 77-78, Burns was Footballer of the Year as well as Forest Player of the Year, and in 1981, Leeds United paid $400,000 to take him to Ellen Road. What good business that was. Forest began the season with a 3-1 win over Everton, then 3 more wins without conceding a goal before September arrived, and they lost 3-0 at Arsenal but conceded 2 in a 3-2 win over Wolves. So alarm bells were ringing as they signed Peter Shilton for $325,000, sold goalkeeper John Middleton to Derby, with Archie Gemmill coming to Forest for $25,000 part exchange. Championship and Cup winners. Forest lost 3 of their first 16 league games, the last of which was at Leeds on November 19, 1977, and would not lose another league game all season, winning the 1977-78 Football League Championship by 7 points from Liverpool, conceding 24 goals in 42 games. So Peter Shilton was worth every penny. This made Brian Clough the 3rd of 4 managers to win the English League Championship with 2 different clubs. Who were the other 3? Well, Tom Watson, Won 3 at Sunderland and 2 at Liverpool. Herbert Chapman, 2 at Huddersfield, 2 at Arsenal, and Kenny Dalglish, 3 at Liverpool and 1 at Blackburn. They beat Liverpool 1-0 in the 78 Football League Cup final replay, despite Cook-tied Shilton, Gemmell and December signing David Needham not playing, but Chris Woods chalked up 2 clean sheets in the final. Nottingham Sports Grounds. Picture was taken in 1969 showing the 2 closest grounds in the Football League. Centre is the city ground of Nottingham Forest, and on the other side of the River Trent is Meadow Lane, Notts County, less than 400 yards apart. I played there in 1959 in the semi-final of the Gillette Cup against Nottinghamshire, and remember nothing apart from the result. We won to go to the final at Craven Cottage. Notts County were the oldest league club, 1862, and Nottingham Forest were the 3rd oldest, 1865. Both previously played at Trent Bridge Cricket Ground, which is in the bottom left. Forest 82 and County 83 to 1910. Journey into Europe. Did they need passports? Forest began season 78-79 by beating Ipswich Town 5-0 for an FA Community Shield record win. The players eagerly waited for the draw in the European Cup, hoping to travel to Spain, France or Italy, but they were drawn to play Liverpool, who had won the trophy for the past 2 seasons. Home goals by Birtles and Colin Barrett put Forest through 2-0 on aggregate, but on December 9, 1978, Liverpool ended Forest's 42-match unbeaten league run, which was the equivalent of a whole season. The previous record had been held by Burnley since 1920-21, 35 games, and the record stood until Arsenal beat it in August 2004, a month before Brian's death. Arsenal played 49 games without defeat. In February 1979, Peter Taylor authorised the English game's first £1 million transfer, signing Trevor Francis from Birmingham City. In April, the European Cup semi-final home first leg against FC Cologne, Forest were 2 goals behind after 20 minutes. Then they scored 3, but Cologne equalised to gain an advantage for the second leg. The second leg, the Clough-inspired display, so Ian Boyer scored the only goal of the game to put Forest through, prompting Gunter Netzer to ask, "Who is this McGovern? I've never heard of him, yet he ran the whole game." (1979 European Cup final. Forest beat Malmo 1-0 in the Olympic Stadium, Munich, with a back post header from Trevor Francis, who latched onto a John Robertson cross. In addition, they beat Southampton 3-2 to return the Football League Cup with goals from 2 from Birtles and Woodcock. Forest finished second in the First Division, 8 points behind Liverpool. This achievement confirmed to me that Taylor and Clough were a great partnership, Brian motivating, Peter providing the players. I'm not sure if I could name another partnership that was their equal. They took 2 provincial clubs to dizzying heights. Even Jimmy Murphy and Matt Busby didn't do that. They took on a huge city club. Taylor could spot talent on a foggy day, like Jimmy Murphy. Journey to the stadium and after the game. Malmo were a very ordinary side, but well organised, playing a well-disciplined offside trap. On the way to the stadium, Clough noticed Birtles, with 2 days' growth, looking anxious, so he ordered him to have a shave. Birtles objected, but Clough was adamant and loaned him his own shaving kit. Only later did Birtles realise it was a tactic to take his mind off the game. Clough wanted him to be cursing his manager, not worrying about the Malmo centre-backs. Then Again, Clough produced 2 crates of beer for the players to drink on the way to the ground, again easing their nerves. After the game, Clough ruined the moment of celebration by demanding the players hand over their medals. 16 had been issued as he wanted to have replicas made for members of the training staff and players who had missed the final, but Lloyd and Clark took their medals into the shower as they thought if they handed them over they might get a replica in return. Archie Gemmell, who had sat fuming on the bench, threw his medal on the floor and told Clough he was welcome to it, an act that hastened his departure from the club to Birmingham City for $150,000, and Chris Woods followed to QPR for $250,000, being replaced by 35-year-old Jim Montgomery. And that's the end of part 2 of the great Brian Clough.